Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining. For those of you who I haven't met, I haven't spoken to Samrat or Sujata before. I'm Mackenzie. I'm going to be helping out with the workshops that we're running. And I think you guys had access to the slide decks from the first meeting, sort of outlining what the project is and what the PAiCE tool is, and some details about what we're doing and what your role will be as well. So before we jump into each file, I'll probably just start with any questions or comments about the tool. I already had one from Samrat saying that there was some compatibility issues with the tool, with tables not showing up properly. There have been a couple of issues on my end, and I'll be trying to send out some new versions of the tool shortly, either today or tomorrow, to continue work on those. So were there any other questions or comments just on how we've been going so far?
Yeah, in case of me, I cannot
Yes.
work on my MacBook, it's a 365, but still whenever I click any cell, it just crashes.
It
So
just
I
crashes.
can view the files, no problem, but I cannot edit actually.
Okay.
I think Sujata faced the same issue as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
she tried. Yeah, maybe Sujata. Yeah, go ahead, please.
My problem is same as Somrag.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good to know that when it happens. So just in future, if it crashes or there's any problems with the tool at all, please message me on WhatsApp as soon as you can, or send me an email, and I'll try to fix it as soon as possible. And I'll be checking that throughout our morning here. The time zones are a little bit funny, but I'll definitely be monitoring that. The way to overcome that, so Sumyadeep also had a problem with not being able to access Microsoft 365, and I've shared a version of the tool
Yeah.
with him on the desktop version. Which, has that been working for you okay, Sumyadeep?
Yeah, it's okay now. Yeah.
Right.
And Mac, the thing is, I started filling out the module P, but I just realized that I would require some help from our specialist or scientist Biplab sir. But as he was on leave, I could not contact him. So just bear with me.
Yes.
I have
Yes.
I have filled out the previous modules, that is S modules, but I couldn't um fill the P modules.
Yes. Thank you,
So
Sumyadeep.
yeah.
Yes, I had a quick look at your file. We'll go through a couple of things in today's meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, just based on where we all are with the files, and with this being quite a condensed schedule to get all of the pre-fill done, I might add an additional meeting at the end of this. So this is our third meeting. We had envisaged originally 5 meetings, but one more. So the last meeting would have fallen on, let me see, would have been on Monday, the 24th of March. We might be able to do another meeting on Friday, the 28th of March, and then the first workshop. And then the first workshop is later. Yes. So we might be able to run one more meeting. Well, what's happened here? There's 2 Sumyadeeps now. Is that a?
Yes, Mackenzie, I have joined from my laptop and mobile both because the internet is unstable. That's why.
Excellent. That's fine. That
Yeah,
was a little.
yeah.
That's all right.
Just in
Okay.
case for
Yes.
this thing.
No, that's fine. As long as there's no objections to having another meeting, it just means I'll be able to, we'll be able to go over all the files one final time before we absolutely have to have them done. Any other comments or questions? Great. If not, I'll start with the Bangladesh file, and I'll just share my screen. Okay, so this is the latest version of the Bangladesh file. Another thing I noticed, I'll get there actually. So starting in module S minus here, just with the geographic scope, we had mentioned this in the last meeting, as to having very specific details on what is included in this location. Here we've written Rangpur is the common name and then the district units. And I just wanted to check from Palaban Harun if this figure here, this 240,000 hectares, does that cover all of this, all of the district, all of the area of these district units?
Yeah,
is-
yeah,
yeah?
yeah, yeah.
Right.
This covers
So
all this. Actually, Rangpur is district and these are sub-district.
great, great. So in that case, this 240,000 hectares is capturing
Includes
all of
all
those
this, yeah.
sub-districts.
Yeah, yeah,
Great,
yeah.
great. No, that's good. It's just because we want it to be very specific on what we're looking at. So if that reflects that, then that's great. I'll just move on to this stuff. So I had sent Palab and Harun another document. I'll just share that on the screen now. And this might be insightful for the rest of you while filling out this module. So this is the same as that module, just in a separate sheet. We have the average proportional area for each crop. We have the average yield. And then we have the average value per ton. Does everybody see that okay? I'll maybe zoom in a little bit. So the way that the tool looks at this is we have yield and value per ton, and both of those are on a per hectare basis. So it just does a quick multiplication of those to find what the gross profit is. So the gross profit of 1 hectare of rice, 4.3 tons by 25,000 BDT gives us around 100,000 BDT per hectare. The gross margin here then is the profit from that. So if we take 111,000 BDT and take off 71,000, then that gives us the costs per hectare. So what this is telling to what these figures are telling the tool is that the costs of cultivating 1 hectare of rice are 40,000 BDT. So I've done that for all of the crops here across the 2 seasons. And we can see quite a lot of variability between them. I'll go through this because I've done the same thing for the India file. And I know that you had both adjusted these values, but I just wanted to make sure that these are okay now. So what this is telling the tool is that to cultivate 1 hectare of potato costs 400,000 BDT. And then by comparison, 1 hectare of chili only costs 1,000. So just looking at that spread there and making sure that that's good. Was there any comments for that?
Yeah, I think we still need to check the values of potato. I think it.
Okay. Right. So there's still some changes that are going to happen to this one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Would it be helpful for me to share this?
Please.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. And then the other, so it's the same here for maize.
No,
Cultivating
maize is
1
okay.
hectare.
Actually,
okay?
maize and vegetable crops, they have higher cost of production in comparison
see.
to rice, wheat. So, but potato is bit. I mean, I think it's on extreme high end. So we should check the values.
Yeah. So just what that means is we come back to the tool here, and when we go to the summary module, it shows us that potato in the Rabi season is the most important crop in the area we're looking at. Is that going to be the case?
Yeah,
or
that's the case. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. So yeah, as long as we're looking back at this this summary module and checking that that's all good, that's great then. But yeah, just looking at the cost, and again, I'll share that summary of the module S values.
Okay,
Coming here now. So just looking at the marginalized population, smallholder farmers, that's great. We just need a little bit more specific as to what a smallholder farmer is for that region. Because if we look at the differences between countries, a smallholder farmer defining that in different locations, it'll be different in different countries. So what would make up a smallholder farmer in those districts that we were talking about? Would it maybe be a farmer who has less than half a hectare, or what sort of value
Yeah, the
would
holding size. Yeah. We'll define that. Okay.
Yep. Okay. I'll just So would you prefer that I make the changes and then send them back to you, or provide you with notes afterwards?
Okay, you can change and you can send us back.
Great. Okay, so I'll just add some there. Here, these are good. These are very specific as to how it affects the system. That's what we want. The one thing that I would ask here is we have the impacts of pesticides twice. So we have the impacts of pesticides entering soil, waterway, food chain. That's fine. That can be considered an environmental concern. But then the biodiversity loss due to pesticide, those are separate problems, absolutely. But when we analyze this in the workshop, any adaptation which addresses the use of pesticides will address both of these. So it might be worthwhile sort of grouping those together and looking at the impact of pesticide on biodiversity and soil or water infrastructure, and then including another one, if there is another one to
Okay,
include.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it,
Otherwise,
got it.
we can leave that. That's
Okay,
good as well.
I got it. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to touch on was these production ceilings here. So these gaps here are quite small. What this is telling the tool here, this value of 13 tons per hectare being the maximum for maize, there's only a 15% yield gap between the current average yield and the maximum potential yield, which is quite a small yield gap. You would maybe think that because that first value here at 11 tons per hectare is an average, that maybe getting a 13 ton per hectare yield in a good year wouldn't be so difficult. So maybe either look at this value here or...
Okay, we'll look at these values probably because we collected data from different sources. So there are some discrepancies. We'll check it again. And I think you are right. These yield gaps are actually not that much, and we need to revise these values, particularly the potential values.
Great. No, thank you. Thank you for seeing that. And again, this is just good things to go through for everybody so that we all, when we're filling it out, it's things that we're all thinking of. So looking at something like this, it's good to go back to other modules and be checking all the time. Does this value feed into what we've already said about the production system and things like that? Module P. So I had noticed that you actually moved on to this module here, and that there was the filter of the tool had hidden the following data inputs, and that you had tried to move on to module C as well. That's another thing that I'll change when I send the new files out to everybody, is that I'll remove these filters because they're more useful for if you have the macro functionality of the tool, which we're not going to worry about. So I'll make sure that those are all taken off so that you can all see all of the data inputs required. Here, these are very good, having the definitions specific to what we're talking about in the domain, why they're a problem in Rangpur. It's very good. The one thing here was these adaptations or these production constraints 4, 5, and 8. So these ones, we would probably capture those more in the production, in the climate challenge module, so in module C-. just because those are about the rainfall. Water resource management is more about how the farmer manages their allocation of water.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, I'll provide maybe comments on this and then send it back. But what we want here is about the farm. We don't want to worry so much about the weather
Right.
in these ones. That's mostly captured in the climate module.
I see.
The other ones here, when we are specifying the definition, so here you've done very well putting how this post-harvest loss impacts potato and other vegetables. But looking at the filter, we're also talking about rice and maize. So if this challenge doesn't really matter for rice and maize, you'll be able to capture that in module P. But if it does, it would be good to include some reasons why post-harvest losses in general affect rice and maize and how they affect rice and maize. Here we've talked about the cold storage facilities and packing systems for potatoes, but not so much for the other crops. It's the same for the pests and diseases here. We want to be really specific and talk about which pests and diseases are the biggest problem. So that way we know if we have a strategy in the adaptations when we're in the workshop, if we have an adaptation put forwards that will impact some pests but not other pests, we can assess whether or not it will address this challenge or not. That was everything I had here. Everything here looks like it's filled out really, really well. And yes, any questions based on those ones, those comments?
No, I think it's okay. I understand, and I will try to revise this.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I'll now share the India file and we'll do a similar run through with that one. Okay. So module S minus here. It's similar for this one. We just need to specify which districts or which specific areas we're talking about. Here we've put West Bengal as a whole. Is that what these values reflect? Because this is quite big as well. 219 million hectares is a very large area.
Mackenzie, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you, Sumyadip.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So does that reflect all of West Bengal, or is there a subset?
No, actually, this is of India, not the West Bengal data.
So this value here is for what is this for?
The gross cropped area of actually this is the area of India, means gross cropped area of India I have given.
Okay.
Not
so,
of West Bengal.
Gotcha. So one of the things that we had talked about in the last meeting, which is maybe why where this is being a little confused, Sumyadip, is we need to specify a geographic scope for the workshop that is specific and that it is manageable as well. So looking at the whole country here is quite difficult, and there will be lots and lots of variability between production systems across the country. So we want a probably smaller area, maybe
so,
a state or province, or a number of districts that we're looking at in particular.
Yeah. Okay, then I will change this. I will give the district data here.
Excellent. So
but what in the question it was coming like what is the gross area of the mixed farming system India 2 means, then I think I have to change there also.
That is correct. So
geographic
I put
scope,
India 2 as a placeholder. I did this for all the files where it was Nepal 123 and India 123 and Bangladesh we're just doing one file. So you can have up to 3 different areas that we're looking at, and that will be one file for each area. So a whole workshop file dedicated to just one area. So here you'll go through these values and you'll change all of this, and that will specify then what area we're talking about, and all of this data here will change as well.
Yes.
Also, you've put that just one season is what we're going to be looking at here. Did you want to just look at the Rabi season, or do you want to look at a Kharif season as well, maybe? Or are you happy with this?
I mean, what is the scope of your workshop will be? I mean, that will be based on your perspective. I mean, do you want to look at all the 3 seasons, or I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. So the scope is very much up to you.
Okay.
So we have participants coming, and what we want to do is match the knowledge of the participants to the production area. So if they have specific knowledge about one area, it might be good to just analyze that area in your file. If they have broader knowledge, you might use a slightly broader area. So that's completely up to you, and it's based on who's coming and what knowledge they'll have. The more data that we can have in here, the more seasons that we're looking at, the better, right?
Okay, yeah.
It will be more work to fill it in here because you'll have Rabi and then you'll have Kharif, and it's pre-Kharif is the 3rd season probably. So you'll have that here as well. As much as what is manageable for you so that you are still able to fill it out in time. Because again, we have that time
I will
constraint.
check that also. Yeah, and yeah.
Excellent. And once we have this, then we know specifically what we're looking at, and then when everybody is together in the workshop, we know exactly which area we're looking at, and we're looking at sort of an aggregate of that area. So I had explained this as well in the previous meeting, so it might be good to look back over the video for that one. That might be a little bit insightful as well. In this module, similar to the Bangladesh file, just looking at the cost per hectare. So quite a large amount of variability. So for instance, this is telling us that the costs here, this is in USD per hectare, and this is in INR per hectare. The main thing that I would look at here is that the gross margin is a very small fraction of the costs. Maybe in the production area that we're talking about, there are very small margins, very small profit margins. But again, the variability here, so you have the costs of harvesting chili at 852,000 per hectare, and then the costs of mustard at 36,000 per hectare. So quite a big difference between those.
No. Okay. I think there might be some mismatch. I will check this data again. I can check.
And all of this will change again once you've specified what location you're talking about. So that's why getting that area first is very important. And again, Sumyadeep, if you want to do multiple different production areas, that's absolutely fine. It will just be captured in 2 different files. Here, this is fine. Women farmers, so in this note here, it's specified women and girls are already included as a marginalized population in the tool. So that will have to be just slightly changed to something different. These are all fine, though. I think those are all good. It might be good just in the explanatory notes to specify how those are affecting the system. Just so somebody without outside knowledge could come and look at this data and say, yes, I understand exactly what's going on in this system. This is all good, including the most valuable crops. That's normally what we expect. The yield gaps here, again, quite small.
Hmm.
So a 6% yield gap in module S, you've included 15 tons per hectare for chili, and then the maximum possible yield under the best conditions in the best piece of land in this area is only 16. So either this one needs to be maybe higher. Again, that's up to you, and
Yep.
or the other values may be a little bit too high here.
Yeah.
And this is where we're up to there. Okay.
Yeah. So I just started filling out, but I just thought that it might be better uh, uh, filling out this after discussing with our agronomist. So he has been on leave, so I will discuss with him and accordingly modify everything. Is that okay?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
that's very good. And one of the things we had spoken about in the previous meeting as well, Sumyadeep, was it's good to rely on expert opinion. Obviously, data would be the best, but because some of these locations we don't have enough data for, it's often a mix between what data we have and expert opinion. So you might even look at the values here and say, these are the values for India as a whole, and then rely on
No, this is for the district, these values.
So these are for the district, right?
Yeah.
So what district are for West Bengal?
District. Coach Bihar.
Cooch Behar. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So maybe then that is the common name here, and that's the district we're looking at is Cooch Behar.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
I have to just means the land statistics I did for India because that was showing like that. I will have to change that. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at Cooch Behar here, then that's good. That way we know what we're talking about now. So it would be good to fill those in if that data is already there, then that's great. Okay, any questions at this? One more thing actually before that. Again, just what the tool is calculating here, showing that potato is the most valuable crop in the Cooch Behar area. Are we happy with that? And then paddy and then winter vegetables.
Yeah, I think that is okay.
Great. Just looking at winter vegetables here as well. I'll have to have a think about it, but I'm not sure that we can group together multiple different crops. Just with the way that we're assessing adaptations.
I will change that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And I'll again include that in a follow-up email.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on what we've done so far?
I think I have understood this from what you have told.
Excellent.
And I will try to modify. Yeah.
Thank you, Sumyadeep.
Yeah.
Anything from anybody else, or are we pretty much good? Good. No, I haven't had anything sent through from Samrat and Sujata yet. Was there a file that's being worked on, or it hasn't worked yet? So that's the reason that we haven't been able to do that. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Very good. So I'll get right on that. Okay, we will now look at the next modules. Is everybody okay to look at the next ones? I know maybe for some of you, a lot of what we've looked at today is quite new. I don't want to overload you with too much information, but again, we are on a bit of a time constraint here. Is everybody happy to go into the next modules? Good. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So now we've characterized the production system. This is the file from Burundi, who's filled out quite well. We have all of this data. We know what the important crops are. We know their seasonality. We've done all of these filters. So you can see here the filters are quite high, around 70, or the production ceiling is quite high, around 60 to 85%. We have these production challenges. So short name, category, subcategory, and quite a long definition here. That's just providing lots of detail as to how this challenge impacts this area. And this is what your module P will look like once that's complete. You'll have all the different crops and their seasonality. So for instance, here you have common beans in the short season and common beans in the long season, and then how those production constraints affect the area. So area not impacted for common beans in the long season, 60%, 0 to 10% loss, 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30. That will give us something that looks like this. So it will give us a summary of all of the different challenges and what their economic value is, how much loss is caused by those challenges. And it will give us the definitions. And this will all be shared with the participants in the workshops, so that they can have a context-specific understanding of what we're looking at specifically. That takes us to the climate modules. So this is where it starts to get a little bit more conceptual and a little bit more difficult to understand sometimes. So again, if you have any questions at all or having any troubles with the tool, please message me as soon as that happens, as soon as that pops up, so that I can action that very quickly and have it back to you. So similar to the production module, we start with a short name, category, which is selected from up here, these ones. Challenge specifics, which is selected from here. It's a subcategory. And then details. Again, we have how does the, or again, here we are trying to capture how this specific challenge impacts your country in particular, and this production area in particular. Some of these will be quite generic. So heat stress will impact most areas in the same way. The next thing, or the other thing we want to look at here is if there is a seasonality to the constraint. So here we're looking at mid-season drought. We want you to specify what months that season is. So for instance, here they've put it in the unit. So they've said that a mid-season drought would occur between November and December and between March and April for the other season. So those are your two, you have two seasons there, and mid-season for one is November, December, and the other is March, April. That brings us to the units here. So these are sometimes a little bit tricky to get right, but we want to be able to capture what this challenge is doing, or what this challenge actually is. So for heat stress, we're looking at increased heat events. Now you can take these numbers and you can build a statement with them. You can say that in Burundi, in the Great Lakes region, in a mild impact year of heat stress, you will have 2 consecutive days above 32 degrees. The current value is 24. So in the Great Lakes area of Burundi, in the current season, we have had 24 consecutive days above 32 degrees. We want to be able to do that for all of these. So we want to be able to put together a statement that makes sense and tells us exactly what we're looking at. Were there any questions on that? I can do a couple more of putting those together. This is all in the instruction manual as well. No? Okay. So with the units in the instruction manual, I've updated to include this module, and I'll send that that shortly, probably today or tomorrow as well. We have some pre-approved units that we know work with it, with the tool. You can choose to use other ones as well, but but it might be easier just to use the units that we've provided and to match the category with the unit. Coming over here now, we input those values. So what would a mild impact year of increased heat events look like in Burundi? If you had 2 consecutive days above 32 degrees, that would be a mild impact. So you might expect losses of between 0 to 10 or 0 to 15% because of that, that challenge. Catastrophic impact year is 10. So if you have 10 consecutive days above 32 degrees, you're probably looking at losses of up to 40%, right? Here they've had 24, so it's a very, very bad year for increased heat events in Burundi in 2024. After that, we look at the seasons. So is increased temperature, increased heat events, a problem in both of the seasons? This is only for files where we have multiple seasons. So if you decide to only use one season, we assume that yes, this climate challenge is a problem in that season. If you have the two, for example, if you have a wet and a dry season, excessive water might not be a problem in the dry season, but is likely to be a problem in the wet season. You have drought, that's maybe not so much a problem in the wet season, but is more of a problem in the dry season. So here you can filter that out. Any questions on that? I know that that's a little bit, that's a lot of information there, and it does get quite difficult to fill this out, but again, I'm here to provide support for this. No, everybody understands and will be able to do this? Yep.
Let us fill this out, and if subsequently I have some question, I will get back to you.
Excellent. So that's what I'm hoping for as well, is that you'll fill this out, and as soon as you're done, you'll send it to me so I can provide comments and we can do some changes. It is very difficult. None of the workshops we've done, so we did 24 workshops last year. Nobody got this perfect on the first time. And the complexity here comes from the tool is asking a very specific thing. And it's sometimes difficult to understand exactly what it's asking for the first time you fill this out. So when you put in these values and then come back to me with them, I can help you adjust them so that they fit the tool better and the tool knows exactly what we're talking about. Moving on from this, I'll do module CV and CO as well, and we'll leave module CI for another time, or for the next meeting, actually. So here we're looking at how much area of each crop in each season, so the proportion of the area under this crop that is vulnerable to each climate challenge. Here you're expecting to have quite high values. So for challenges like heat stress, there would have to be something very specific about the area which you're looking at to make it so that it's not vulnerable to heat stress. We're looking at under any heat stress, mild heat stress or extreme heat stress, how much of the area under banana would be vulnerable, would have some impact to it. So here they've said that there's 20% of banana crops which are not affected at all by heat stress. So there's something about that 20%. It could be the topography, or it could be something else that they've done. It could be some type of irrigation. That means that that 20% will never be impacted by heat stress. Yes, Samrat, there's a question.
Yeah, can you zoom in a bit, please?
Yes, yes. Apologies. Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. Is that clear then? Is it clear what this is asking for?
Yeah, I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
Now.
So again, generally pretty high values here. An example where it might be a lower value, if you have a crop which is irrigated, let's say the banana crop is irrigated, and drought is the problem. If you have an area which is accessing groundwater for irrigation and it's a reliable source of groundwater, then maybe that 20% of the banana crop will not be able to be impacted by early season drought because they have access to a reliable source of water. Yeah, so relatively high values here, and you're looking at specific crops in specific seasons and how much of that crop in that season will be vulnerable to each challenge. And then just a level of certainty. So informed estimate, again, being based on expert opinion, certain being based on really strong data, and then uncertain being where it's a bit of an assumption. Module CO now. So again, we have this split by challenge and season. So we're looking at heat stress in the long season, in the long rain season. We want to predict here, looking at the next 10 years. Oh, sorry, there's a question. Is there a question from Saudia?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to ask you a question quickly. In the previous module, I guess in CV, yeah. Here, so just looking at it, so these are the values indicating the proportion of production area for this particular crop uh, that is vulnerable to production loss if it is a non-event year, right? So if, for instance, for a particular climate-induced event, for example, for the heat stress one, so if the year does not like bring heat stress, then what is the proportion of area under this particular crop that is likely to get affected? So that is the answer that it is trying to get, right?
No, no. I can see that why there's confusion there though. So we want to know for an area, we're assuming that there is heat stress here. So it could be mild heat stress or it could be catastrophic heat stress.
Okay, yeah.
Would
yeah, so,
banana be impacted by heat stress regardless of how bad it is, right? You could have very bad heat stress or very mild
Okay.
heat stress.
So it is regardless of the kind of intensity of the event, right?
Yeah, we don't want to consider the intensity of the event here because that has been a problem in the past and has caused some confusion.
So maybe the question there in the rows in the fifth row, maybe that is the root of the confusion, maybe because it is
Yes.
asking what proportion of the production area of each crop is potentially vulnerable to production loss if it is not a non-event year. Okay, there is
Okay.
a problem in deduction of logic. Okay, yeah, I get it now.
Yes.
It is not a non-event year. Like I read it quickly and I thought it was like a non-event year.
Understood. Understood. And that's good to have feedback on the tool as well. If anybody has any points that they think should change, I'm all ears to hearing that and anything that we can do to improve how the tool works. So thank you for that, Saudia.
Yeah, so maybe you could just bold the part not in non-event year, like
Yes,
bold in
it's a
the.
double negative. It
Yeah.
is confusing. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just read it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Good. So coming back here, looking at how many times each type of event we predict to happen in the next 10 years. So we have a 10-year horizon here. How many times will heat stress not be a problem in the long rain season over the next 10 years? They've said that 9 of the next 10 years will have no heat stress. So I'm unsure, this is data from another workshop, obviously, but it seems unlikely here that 9 out of the next 10 years will not have this problem, right? So you consider the logic behind it when you're putting in values here. It's likely that you'll have quite a few in mild and maybe moderate and even significant. You might have quite a few in non-event year as well. Generally lower values in catastrophic. And we want to match this to module C- here. So if you have an event in the catastrophic, if the values that you put in catastrophic make the event so crazy that it will never happen in module CO, that you have zeros everywhere, maybe it's worthwhile going back to module C- and saying, okay, what is a realistic value that could happen that would still cause bad losses? Oops. So the statement here, the prompt that we have, again, included in the instruction manual that I will share, we have, in the next 10 years, we expect, well, in the next 10 years in the Great Lakes region of Burundi, we expect 5 of those 10 years to have 12 days total without rain through the mid-season. So you can see you can make these sentences which form a statement, which very clearly show what we're talking about here. So in the next 10 years in Burundi, in the Great Lakes region, we expect 3 of those 10 years to have 45% loss in the long rain season due to insect outbreak. Is that clear, or are there some questions here too?
These are predictions, right, Mackenzie?
That's correct,
I mean,
yes.
from our experience, we can predict. Okay.
So it's difficult to get data here. Obviously, whatever you use will be a prediction. Using certainty here, if you have a certain value, maybe it's come from a climate model or something like that. Like if you have data from a model that's been through a peer-reviewed process or published by a big publisher of macro climate data, that might be certain. Informed estimate, maybe you look at what we're predicting climate change to do in your country, and we look at the data here and we say, okay, maybe we expect these values. And uncertain is you're completely unsure and you're just saying, we assume maybe the spread will look like this and you'll have some significant and some mild. Anything else on this one, or happy to move on?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good, excellent. So because we have a little bit of time left here, I might just touch on module CI and then look through some of the workshop modules as well. I did this last time, just to give a good introduction so that we're starting to think about what the workshop will look like. So here's where we're asking for something, a data point here, which is quite difficult to give. And it's likely that most of these will be based on expert opinion or sort of massaging data out of our assumptions. So here we have the current average yield. And in this current average yield, maybe we already expect there to be some heat stress, which is affecting the banana crop. So we want to then input what a non-event year would look like. If heat stress did not occur at all in this year, then we would expect a yield of 13.5 tons per hectare. So we want to isolate each climate-induced event. We want to think of a completely average season, and the only difference is that there is no heat stress at all. That gives us a bump here of around 3.3 tons per hectare. It's the same thing for all these other ones. So current average year, 10.2 tons per hectare. A mild event year, so if there was 2 consecutive days above 32 degrees, but everything else in the season was completely average, we would expect 9.4 tons per hectare. So that means that this current average year, maybe there's one day in the season above 32 degrees, because this is slightly higher than this one. The values then drop off here. So your losses here would be, you get about a 50% loss in a moderate year. That's probably a little bit high. And then in a catastrophic year, they're assuming that it's about a quarter of the yield that you would get in a non-event year. So heat stress has the potential to cut the yield by 75% and give you quite a low yield. You're then doing that for each crop in each season for each climate event. So thinking specifically about each event and how that will impact a crop in each year. Is that clear? I know that that's quite a confusing thing to get, but again, I'll help you sort of fill this out and make it logical. No questions here. We're all feeling confident that we could fill this out. Great, good to hear. Okay, now the C- module is not working at the moment, so we're going to work on fixing that. By the next time we meet, I know for most of you, you still are working on the S- S and P- and P. So if we can fill up to P module, by the next meeting, we really need to have up to the P module filled up. Because that will leave us only a couple of weeks to fill up this one, and this generally takes a little bit more time. So we really need to have finished module P.
So Mackenzie,
Yes.
could you please provide one filled up module, completely filled up file, so that we could see that whenever necessary?
Yes.
Like you are
Yes.
showing this file, Burundi file.
Mhm.
Can you just send that?
Yes. So that was the purpose of the instruction manual as well. Have you had a look at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one yet, Sumideep?
Yeah. I haven't look at those guidance videos, but I think looking at the file it would be better.
So not the videos, the manual that I put together. So it's a document. I'll actually pull it up for you. It's a Word
Okay.
document, or
I
not a
might
Word
have
document.
missed that one. Yeah. Okay.
So the problem with my handing out the previous files, from past experience when we've done that, the data we get back is very similar. So obviously not your fault if you're looking at
Yeah.
data and then you're filling it out.
This manual is included in the email trail.
Yes, I'll forward
Okay.
it to you. I'll forward an
Okay.
updated version.
Please.
So
Then yeah,
yes,
it would be
absolutely.
better
So
then.
just
For
for
checking.
everybody to know as well, I'll go through some of this. So we have it's done module by module, and then you have instructions on each part of the module. So if it's split up into different parts, what we're asking for, occasionally some notes as well on different nuances and stuff, and then screenshots from different files as well.
Yeah.
So for module P, so module P, you have an example here of what it should look like once it is filled out.
Yeah.
Do you think that will be enough, Sumyadeep, or do you still want a file?
I think that will be enough just for the guidance, I mean,
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
why.
Yes.
So please forward this
I
in
absolutely
mail.
will. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good. And any other questions or anything at this stage? Otherwise, I'll just go through some of the workshop modules again. Some of you have already heard this, but it might be good to look at again. So once we're done filling out the pre-fill, yes, Soria?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you if like it is okay if we will like we will fail that for Nepal, like Samrat and Sujata will fill the data up to like the P module until the next meeting. But then those data might be like kind of changed based on like expert consultations that will be done a bit later, because like those things like expert collection and then some data validation will be done only after next week. So for Nepal, that is the only possibility that we have. So maybe they can do the data based on secondary data and maybe just a few like discussions, and then after that, after they get some validations and then other kind of sources for data, then they could maybe refill those not refill, but as in, like validate those data. So there might be a few changes. We might expect a few changes. So is that okay, or what might be the way to like proceed?
So that is okay. We just need to be mindful that the workshops are on the 1st to the 3rd of April, and then the 7th. I believe it's the 7th to the 9th.
Yeah, 7th and
It's
9th.
early.
7th, yeah.
Early April. So as long as we're confident that we can do all of this before then it's fine. It will be definitely useful to put it together and send it to me, and we can send it back and forth and then consult the experts afterwards if they're not available yet. The main ones that we absolutely have to get right, that we cannot go back and change, is the production challenges. Here, the definitions, and these definitions here as well. So as soon as we change module P minus, we then need to change all of the data in module P, because if a definition changes, then we're talking about something different. For this one here, it's slightly worse again, because if you change 2 or 3 definitions or 2 or 3 data points here, we're talking about something completely different in the next 3 modules. So as long as we get these definitions right, and maybe that will be a good idea to fill up to module P and also do just the definitions here for the next meeting, so that we can go through and make sure they're all good to go for when we have the expert consultation. Will that work?
Yeah, I think yeah, that's the thing. Then yeah, I think yeah, we'll manage with that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, if there's no other questions or comments, I know it's almost 3:30. So maybe I won't go through those extra workshop modules today, but we'll push that to a later meeting. We can end it there. Was there anything else? Any questions or comments?
No, McKinsey. After further working out on that, I will get back to you.
Excellent, thank you. And again, I'll just emphasize, please send me your files as soon as you've done anything. I can have emails back and forth with you. I'm hoping to do the next meeting next Tuesday. So that gives us 6 days to start to fill out those extra modules. And then after that, we'll have the next meeting again on the following Monday, and then one final meeting on that Friday. And then Brendan and I are traveling to India on the 30th of March for the workshop to start on the 1st of March, 1st of April.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I will send out a meeting invite along with all of the resources that I discussed and the action notes as well. Thank you all for coming.
Okay.
Thank
bye.
you.
See you next week.
Thanks, Mac. Yeah.
Thank
See you.
you.